The Bloop. In 1997, somewhere in the deserted waters of the South Pacific, underwater microphones recorded a sound that, from that moment on, became one of the strangest ocean recordings ever made. It came from deep below, but it was very powerful, and it traveled across thousands of kilometers of water. They named it the Bloop. At first, the disturbing part was not too complicated. The reason was that no one knew where this sound had come from. No one could see what had made the sound. No trace of any animal had been found on cameras, there was no corpse rising to the surface, and there was no nearby ship that could explain it either. There was only a massive sound rising from one of the loneliest regions of the planet. Even imagining that moment is truly chilling, my friends. It was a real mystery in every sense. To return to our topic, scientists later linked this sound to huge masses of ice breaking apart near Antarctica. According to the official explanation, this was the most logical possibility. But this was exactly the main reason why the bloop spread so much on the internet. Because even if you read the explanation, the sound still felt far too alive. It did not sound like breaking ice masses at all. It sounded more like the voice of a mysterious creature coming from the depths. And that was already what frightened the people who witnessed it. And according to them, if a living creature had made this sound, it would have had to be much larger than anything we know. Even larger than a blue whale. We are talking about something so huge that the moment we thought it existed in the ocean, we would not be able to feel at ease. This is why people still cannot forget it. Because the ocean did not give us a monster we could observe. Unfortunately, it gave us something worse. Just a frightening sound coming from the depths. A single signal rising out of the darkness. And then absolute silence. The black demon shark. Off the coast of Baja California, fishermen have been talking for years about something they call El Demonio Negro. In other words, the black demon shark. Wow, I felt the fear in its name down to my bones. This black demon is not a sea serpent or a mythological creature. It is just a shark, but an extremely large and dangerous shark. According to eyewitnesses, this fish has an almost completely black body and is described as a massive animal. Also, the large dorsal fin cutting through the surface of the water made it look from a distance like a moving blade. Eyewitnesses say it is larger than a great white shark. Some describe it as something left over from prehistoric times, like the shadow of the megalodon. If you ask what makes this story effective, I would first say that it sounds almost too believable. Because a fisherman goes out to sea alone, the boat is silent, the water is calm. Then suddenly something hits the bottom of the boat. And not just once, but again and again. And then the color of the water starts to darken. The boat tilts slightly to one side, and all at once, the ocean beneath it no longer feels like an empty space, but like something full. Skeptics say it could be a whale shark, a large great white shark, or local stories that became exaggerated over time. Maybe it is. But the witnesses never describe it as a calm animal. They describe it as something that knew the boat was there and attacked on purpose. The black demon does not have to be a supernatural, magical, mythological creature to be frightening. The sea beneath us is already dark, visibility is low, and the ocean is enormous. In an environment like that, for a fisherman who thinks he has seen a shark much larger than normal, the event would already be terrifying enough, wouldn't it? After this incident, the black demon became such a famous sea legend that in 2023 it even inspired a horror movie with the same name. But the creature we see in the movie is the Hollywood version of the legend. In other words, we can also say it is a slightly exaggerated version with some additions. Cadborosaurus. On the shores of British Columbia, people have been saying for generations that they have seen a strange sea creature. They even gave it a name. They call it Cadborosaurus, or Caddy for short. And the descriptions given by everyone who claims to have seen this creature are strangely similar to each other. A long, dark-colored body, a head sometimes compared to a horse, and sometimes to a camel. A neck rising up above the water, and a serpent-like shape moving in and out between the waves. And as I said, this is not just a story told by one sailor on one single night. It is a creature that many people claim to have seen, and whose description seems to resemble what other people have described. What makes Caddy disturbing is that reports kept coming from different people over the years. Fishermen, coastal residents, and boat owners, they were all constantly claiming the same thing, that it was something that did not move like a whale, did not look like a seal, and was too large to ignore. Some stories also mentioned strange bodily remains, and it was thought that these remains might belong to Caddy. Scientists, on the other hand, offered more realistic explanations. Decomposed sharks, sea lions swimming one behind another, or fish, or poor visibility conditions. And probably many of the sightings really did have a normal explanation, because Caddy did not feel impossible. It felt like a creature that could rarely be seen. Like something seen for 5 seconds by the wrong person at the wrong time, before disappearing back into the cold water. That is the thing about Caddy. It is not certain, but it is possible. The Hook Island Sea Monster. In 1964, near Hook Island in Australia, a family claimed that they had seen something massive beneath the shallow waters. At first, it was just like a dark shadow, but later they realized that it was not a shadow. The creature was described as a large, black, tadpole-like animal. It had a massive head and a long body stretching out behind it. Unlike most sea monster stories, there was something extra in this case. Photographs, blurry, strange photographs, the kind that make you feel uneasy. The Hook Island sea monster was not just a story told in a bar or written in an old sailor's journal. What made it more special than other legends was that people had images they could actually look at. And the longer you looked at that photograph, the harder it became for your brain to decide what it was seeing. Was it a dead animal? Was it a fake setup? Was it a plastic sheet? Or was it something lying motionless in the shallow water? These were the questions constantly circling in people's minds. Skeptics have been questioning this story for years, and they have many reasons to be suspicious. But I have to admit that, as an internet mystery, it is an almost perfect case. The reason is that the photograph is not clear enough to prove anything, but strange enough to keep the doubts alive. The thing we can take away from this story is this: the most terrifying sea monsters do not always have to be in the deepest trenches. Sometimes they are close enough to the shore for someone to take a photograph of them, and yet still far enough away for the world to never agree on what it saw. The Kraken. For centuries, sailors in the North Atlantic spoke of something rising from beneath their ships. They called it the Kraken. According to legend, its enormous arms would break through the surface of the water and wrap around the wooden boards of a ship, dragging it down into a dark whirlpool filled with foam. This may sound like a complete myth, but there is one detail we should remember, my friends. Giant squids are real. In fact, they are living in the depths of our oceans right now, even though they are seen alive very rarely. For a large part of human history, people knew them only from body parts washed ashore, marks on whales, or strange encounters that sailors could not explain. Now, I want you to imagine that you are on a wooden ship hundreds of years ago. On a foggy night, out in the middle of a lonely ocean, you are very far from land, and the water suddenly becomes far too calm. Then you notice something pale moving beneath the surface. Then an arm rises out of the darkness. Now I ask you, in that moment, would you call this creature a squid or a monster? Personally, I would definitely call it a monster. This is why the Kraken feels different from other legends. Maybe it was exaggerated, maybe it was enlarged, maybe it was turned into something impossible, but there was something real behind this fear. The truth that the deep ocean really does contain animals with giant arms. Maybe the Kraken was not as large as the stories described it, but the ocean gave people enough evidence to believe in it, and sometimes that is all it takes for a legend to be born. Ningen. In the cold waters near Antarctica, stories began to spread about a pale humanoid shape moving beneath the surface, and this creature came to be called Ningen. Ningen means human in Japanese, and the description of this creature is usually very simple: a massive white body, smooth skin, long arms or limbs that look like fins, and in a place where there should not be a face, a shape that looks like one. In fact, we can say that people began to feel disturbed by Ningen because it looked human. Sometimes it is said to have been seen near the ice, sometimes beneath ships, and sometimes it is said to appear in the water for only a few seconds before disappearing again. Ningen is most likely a modern internet legend. It may have been born from misidentified whales, ice formations, shadows, edited images, or stories spreading on Japanese forums. But even if you know this, the result does not really change, because Ningen still continues to frighten people. The reason is that Ningen does not disturb people because it is like a shark or a squid. In fact, the main reason people fear this creature comes from Ningen having a humanoid structure. Not fully human, but almost human. And the fear begins exactly in that almost part. Naturally, it makes perfect sense for a giant shark or a giant squid to exist in ocean waters. Even giant sea serpents can feel as if they were inspired by real animals. But a pale, humanoid figure moving beneath Antarctic waters triggers fear on another level. Honestly, this legend gave me this feeling, as if the ocean is not only home to a creature, but to a creature that has learned to resemble us. The Lusca. In the Bahamas, there are places on the ocean floor that look as if holes have been opened in the ground, and these are called blue holes. From above, they are beautiful. They look like dark circular openings in the middle of bright blue water. But below, there is an entirely different world. Underwater caves, narrow tunnels, sudden currents, and you can picture this world through black voids where the light disappears almost immediately. Local people claim that a creature they call the Lusca lives in these circles. They usually describe this creature as half shark and half octopus. They speak of a creature with the aggression of a predator in arms that could grab something and pull it down. People say that the Lusca waits inside the blue holes, and sometimes it is said that the water suddenly starts moving violently, pulling boats, divers, or animals toward the hole. Scientists explain this situation like this. Dangerous currents can form in blue holes. Water can move through the cave system strongly enough to trap people or pull objects downward. But legends do not form around calm waters for no reason. The local people did not place the Lusca in the open ocean. They placed it inside an entrance. If something truly large lives inside those tunnels, it does not have to chase anything in the sea. On the contrary, it only has to wait near the entrance, and curiosity takes care of the rest. Trunko. In 1924, on the coast of South Africa, people said they had seen a strange, pale-colored creature near the shore. Later, it was given the name Trunko. According to the story, witnesses saw this creature in the sea, locked in a violent struggle with whales. Not long after, a large and unidentified body washed ashore. It was white and seemed to be furry. It was also so decomposed that people could not agree on what they were looking at. Some of them said it had a structure resembling a trunk. For others, it looked like a giant polar bear that had come out of the sea. Trunko stayed on land long enough for people to see and observe it. But unfortunately, before the ocean took it back, people did not carry out a scientific investigation. What makes Trunko one of the creepiest globster stories is not necessarily that it proves the existence of an unknown monster, but it shows very well how terrifying the ocean can make even ordinary biology look. To give an example, a decaying whale can lose its shape. Its tissues can fall apart. Its skin can separate. Its fibers can look like fur. As a result, when a normal animal returns from the sea, it can look as if it does not belong to this world, and that is completely natural. And maybe Trunko's story is simply this. Maybe it was not an unknown creature. Maybe it was a creature we all know, but the ocean had changed it so much that no one could figure out what this creature was anymore, and therefore, it caused confusion. Which of the creatures I talked about do you think is the scariest? And is there any creature I might have forgotten to add? I would be happy if you shared it with me in the comments. If you enjoyed my video, do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe. I hope to see you in my next videos. Goodbye.